Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to CertiKit's webinar on Clause 6 called Planning. This webinar will be looking at Clause 6 across all of the management systems, the generic areas, and some of the more specific ones. And before we go any further, what we'll do is give you a little bit of information about CertiKit and a bit about myself, and then we can dive into the actual webinar. So, CertiKit. We are a leading creator of compliance toolkits and provider of ISO services, and we're based in beautiful Derbyshire in the UK. We've been around since 2010, and we've helped around about 4,000 customers globally. We specialize in ISO standards and data protection, GDPR, cyber essentials. Motto really is to make compliance easy to help you gain to the certification to the relevant standard that you're looking for. A little about me, I'm Ted. I'm one of the two compliance consultants that CertiKit have. My main consultancy is for 9014-45 and 22301, assisting new and current CertiKit customers with their inquiries and guides to implementation, etc. I'm also the technical author. I assist in the development of the actual toolkits, and I'm a certified lead auditor for 9, 14, 45, 27 and 22301, and I've got experience of over 20 years in a lot of different business sectors. I also am a certified IMS lead implementer. Integrated management system seems to be coming to the front now, and I'm a lead auditor to implement 9, 14 and 45 as one management system. And then finally, I'm also a black belt Lean Six Sigma practitioner. Comes in handy when you're doing process audits and things. So that's the background. Now we'll go into the meat of the webinar. What we'll be covering today, we're going to look at what Clause 6 actually holds, and then look at them in a bit more depth. So we'll be looking at actions to address risk and opportunities, objectives and planning to achieve them, and then planning changes. We'll look at the additional requirements in the other management systems. So the ones we're looking initially are the generic ones that go across all of the management systems. And then we'll be looking at individual management systems and what else is in their Clause 6s. And then we'll look at how the Clause 6 actually links within the management system itself. It's one of the few clauses that has tentacles that go up and down the management system. And then we'll end with a quick summary of what we've covered. So if everybody sits back and rests, I'll just jump into this. So Clause 6. There are three main clauses that you see generically in Clause 6. And as I alluded to just now, some of the standards have an extra one or an extra two. But generically, what we find within the ISO standards that are written in the Annex SL format are actions to address risk and opportunity, objectives and planning to achieve them, and planning of changes. So you'll see these three in every Clause 6 in all the main ISO standards written within the Annex SL format. So let's look at each one in a bit more depth. So this is subclause. It's like I said, it's the same across all the Annex one. Effectively, what it states is that the management system standard deals with the actions required to address risk and opportunities. This clause emphasizes the importance of identifying, analyzing and evaluating risk and opportunities that can affect the organization's ability to achieve its objectives and manage risks. This clause links closely with Clause 4.1 and 4.2, and we'll come to that in a bit more depth later on. But this is an extremely important clause of Clause 6 that a lot of people do not join the dots with, and it's always a pickup point in audits. So an example of how this requirement is applied. You identify the risks and opportunity for those interested parties or those issues, internal, external, that you've determined in clause 4.1 of clause 4.2. Now, every interested party will have risks, as will every issue, but not every interested party or issue will have opportunities. But you need to be able to identify both against each. So each individual interested party, you'd look at them and say, right, what are the threats? What's the risks if we don't fulfill their requirements from 4.1? Or what are those opportunities that we could exploit from fulfilling those requirements? The next is to look at the risk assessment. Once you've collated your risks and opportunities, the next step is to assess the potential impact upon the organisation. Now, not just the organisation, but upon the management system, enabling you to fill its job within the organisation. A lot of people just think it's just looking at the organisation. It's not. It's actually there to look at how can these risks affect our management system, whether that's 9,000, 27,000, whatever. Once you've got that together and you've done your risk assessment, and it's the same like a normal risk assessment you would carry out like within 27,000, and we'll cover a little bit of this in a second. You need to do your risk mitigation. So you need to look at those and then decide what actions are we going to put in place to either reduce that risk or actually terminate that, get rid of that risk altogether. So it's exactly like a standard risk within health and safety, within 27,000, within 14,000. But now we are looking specifically at interested parties, issues externally and internally that can affect the management system fulfilling its requirements to the organisation. Then we look at the opportunities. You take your hat off of risk, put your opportunities hat on, and look at how you can exploit the ability to fulfill their needs and expectations. Now, this could be getting a bigger foothold in your industry sector, increasing the number of clients because they've heard that you're doing a great job through the grapevine and things like that. Having happier staff because the management system is actually looking after them, not just your clients as well. For 45,001, they're looking at the health and well-being of your staff as well as your clients. So you've got given them a nice environment to work in. It's a safe environment. So these are opportunities you can exploit to maximize your management system. And of course, exploiting them will also have an effect upon the bottom line. Happy customers, more referrals, more customers, more income to the bottom line. And then finally, monitoring and reviewing. It's okay to identify them, to risk them, to put the mitigations in place, and then to put the exploitation of potential opportunities. You have to keep an eye on them because sometimes their needs change. And if you're not on top of the game, you may not achieve those opportunities and you may definitely fall foul of the risks. So you need to have a continuous review of your interested parties and your internal and external issues. This is an important part of this clause. So just to give you a quick example of an action to address table, so that it links back to your clause 4.1. We've got our interested parties on the left column. In this case, it's split in internal and external. We've got employees, heads of department, accounts, internal and external, clients, government departments, and competitors. We've identified their requirements or their need. So employees want consistent access to IT infrastructure. HODs, their expectations from the team. Accounts department, they want to make sure the bank balance, etc. Clients want a quality service, etc. The third column is identifying the risk associated with how we're going to meet their requirements. So One of the risks is not meeting the requirement of constant IT, is risk of downtime and lack of training on the new system. One of the opportunities, if we do meet that requirement, increased effectiveness and efficiency with the new system. So you would look for a risk and an opportunity. And like I said, there's always risks, not always an opportunity, but you've got to try looking at both ways. And then the final thing you have to do to satisfy this requirement is the effectiveness of that action against those risks or those opportunities. So the effectiveness, if we meet that requirement, we've identified the risk, is that minimal downtime, allowing staff to work more efficiently. So this is an exercise that you would do against all your internal and external interested parties, and the same with internal and external issues. Obviously, risk is an important thing, and risk-based thinking, and that's what 9001 is now. The 2008 standard was just quality. The 2015 standard is a quality risk management system. So risk-based thinking has permeated quality, as it has 14, 45, 22, 301, and definitely 27. So just a couple of key principles based on risk thinking. Identify risks and opportunities. So as I said before, you need to exercise, get a group of people together and look at it with risk eyes, and then look at it with opportunity eyes. You need to evaluate the significance. The same with any risk assessment. What is the impact to the management system if it was to happen, and how likely is it to happen? Again, you can use the heat graphs that you normally find when it comes to risk assessment to do this. Obviously, the ones with the greater risks will have the greater rating. So those are the ones that you want to pay attention to initially. Then you need to look at developing and implementing the appropriate measures. So you need to think, what do we need? What actions do we need to put in place? You need to assess these carefully, because they need to be monitored carefully to make sure they're working. It's no good putting an action in place if 6 months down the line you've still got the same problem because nobody's looked at the action to see if it was working efficiently. So you need to develop and implement, and then continually monitor and review. Don't just let it sit there by itself. This is exactly the same for objectives. Once you've got your objectives defined, which we'll talk about in a minute, don't just let them sit there. You have to continually monitor them and review them so you can actually see if you're going to work towards them. Benefits of risk-based thinking. Here's some of them that come about. These are not all by any means, but these are some of the good ones. Improved decision making. So by identifying risks, assessing risks and opportunities, you can make informed decisions that are based on thorough understanding of the potential consequences of those actions if you don't fulfill them, or the residual risk if you do fulfill them. This can lead to a more effective and efficient decision making, reducing the likelihood of costly mistakes or missed opportunities if you're looking on the opportunity side of things. Increased resilience. By understanding the risks and opportunities that could impact you, you can build resilience and better prepare for unexpected events. This is a bit like business continuity. This can help you then respond more quickly and effectively to any crises that arrive, and therefore reduce the impact upon the business and the management system as a whole. Obviously, continuous improvement. This is, of course, a requirement of the management system anyway. Clause 10. Risk-based thinking encourages organisations to continuously review and improve their management system. You do that by monitoring, assessing, and then action planning. Again, identifying risk and opportunity, organisations can identify areas for improvement and take proactive steps to actually address those improvements. This is a big tick in the box for clause 10 when you come to your audits. And then finally, improved overall performance. You combine all those together, you can see each one increases the efficiency and effectiveness of your management system, and therefore that will feed down to your clients, your staff, your environment, whatever your management system is. The second generic subclause within this is clause 6.2, objectives and planning to achieve them. This is something that both myself and my colleague Jerry, who's manning the questions. Oh, and by the way, if you've got any questions, just drop them in the chat box and we'll come to those when we finish. We see this a lot of times when people, organizations put in their management objectives, which are more aligned to business objectives than they are to management objectives. Management objectives so they're looking at the goals and targets set by yourselves to achieve not just compliance with the ISO standard, but to improve the efficiency and the effectiveness of the ISO standard that you've implemented. The objectives help you to establish a framework for consistent, effective management across all areas of your operation. Actually, it's all areas of your operations within the scope of your management system, which leads, as I said, to improved efficiency, customer satisfaction, better health and safety management, better environment management, better information security, effectively the overall management system and the organization. So looking at your objectives, you've got to think carefully about your objectives. So when you come to planning, you've got to have a clear understanding of what you want to what your objective wants to achieve. Without that, you can't fulfill the next roles within the objectives. The objectives have to be smart. They've got to be specific, they've got to be measurable, they've got to be attainable, realistic, and time bound. If you have them as smart, you'll always go a long way towards achieving your objectives. So planning involves establishment of clear, measurable objectives, identifying the resources you need to implement those and to measure them, and develop an action plan that will put them into action. So you're implementing an action plan. Also take into effect any changes this may have to your operational procedures or procedures further down line. So it's not just a case of we're going to increase customer satisfaction by 50%. Brilliant. How are we going to do that? Well, we're going to just put that in as an objective. We'll think about that later. You've got to have the whole gambit before you actually document these. Our recommendation is you only have 3 or 4 decent objectives, 2 short-term and 2 long-term. Next step is the implementation. So this is actually putting into place those actions that you plan for and assigning responsibility for those actions, and then the monitoring of those actions towards the objective. Objectives should have set periods of time you're going to monitor them. It's no good waiting until the end of the time when the objective is supposed to close to find out you're not going to achieve it. The idea of consistently monitoring them is allowing you to work out at stages towards the goal. Are we going to achieve that goal by that time? If the answer is yes, you just carry on. If the answer is yes, in fact, we're going to achieve it quicker, that's even better. But if the answer is no, I don't think we are, then you need to think about reviewing your implementation, your plan about achieving it. Maybe reviewing your actual goal by reducing it to achieve it. Don't be afraid to reduce your goal if you say we're going to do something by 5%, but actually we're only going to achieve 3%. If you make it 3%, fair enough. It's still an improvement. But try not to give up on your original objective. Be objective about your objective. The next step is the evaluation. Assessing the effectiveness of those actions, as I just said, and for the identifying the areas for improvement. Evaluate it throughout its life cycle, but then evaluate it when it's complete. Do the old due diligence. Could we have done something better? Could we have implemented something different? Do your lessons learned practices. So if you want to use that objective again, because it actually had good results, you can look at it and action plan it in a slightly different way to increase the benefits of it. And then finally, improvement. This involves making changes to the management system and taking corrective actions when necessary to ensure continued compliance. Improvement is the end stop for your objective. The whole idea of having an objective is to improve the management system and your output to your customers, clients, staff, environment, etc. So this is the end stop, but you have to have an identified end stop. Is this what you envisaged for your objective? Is this how you saw it happening? Hopefully it's going to be a big fat yes. Some common examples for objectives, and these we see all the time, is documenting policies and procedures. Policies and procedures that are not mandatory to your management system. These are voluntary policies and procedures. There's no harm in putting that as an objective, but make it more specific than just this. Documenting policies for this. Developing and implementing procedures for the following areas. Make it specific. Remember, SMART. Training and awareness. Well, of course, awareness is 7.3 of the standards, so it's a requirement, not really an objective because you have to achieve it. But it could be an awareness outside of the business. You know, you're sending out the message to your clients. By the way, we've got ISO 27001. We know how to look after your data because we've got the system. Not ISO 45000. We think about you as our neighbours and your environment because we've got 45. So there's awareness outside of the standard that you could exploit. Training, yes, it is a requirement of the standard for 7.2, the competencies of your staff required for the management system, running the management system. Training can be used as an improvement and as an objective to say that we are going to increase the competency of our assistant health and safety officer by putting them through a NEBOSH course. That's an objective. That's fine, but make sure it's smart. He's going to go through a NEBOSH course. He's got 6 months to do it. Is it attainable? Yes, it is. It's realistic. Yes, it fits in with his job description and his job competencies, and it's time bound because he said he's going to have it by September. Nice little objective there, and you could do that across different ones. Monitoring and measuring, again, this is something you have to do anyway, but again, there's other monitoring and measuring tools that you can bring in. You could say we are going to implement a new strategy for monitoring and measuring customer satisfaction, air quality from our exhausts or something like that. It's an objective. We're going to do it within Q3, make it specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time bound. That's fine. And then, of course, continuing improvement. All objectives should be aiming towards continuing improvement. Continuing improvement by itself is not really an objective. We put it in there. Well, I've put it in there because I see this quite often with people, and I say, well, what part of continuing improvement you're going to do? And say, oh, all of it. Okay, so is that SMART? Yes, it is. I said, okay, what's specific about it? And then they break it down to actually, we're going to do this for continuing improvement. So again, it can be used, but it has to be more specific than that. Just some ideas of common objectives we've seen. Again, these are overriding ones. They need to be dived into to get the specific bits. Just a quick word about the difference between a business objective and a management system objective, because a lot of people get these a bit confused. So a business objective is specific, measurable, again, is SMART, goal bound, that an organization sets to achieve its overall mission and vision. Business objectives are usually focused on improving the organization's financial performance, customer satisfaction, market share, employee engagement, or other strategic areas of focus. My rule of thumb is that if it has pound signs or dollar signs at the end of the objective, it's generally a business objective. Whereas a management one is specific to the goals of the organisations to set to improve the ISO management standard, such as 9000 or 27000. Objectives are designed to improve the organisation's management practices, processes, and systems to meet the requirements of the relevant standard or the requirement of the organisation. These also need to be smart. However, they can be and normally are aligned to organisation strategic goals, but look to enhance customer satisfaction for 9001, customer and staff safety for 45001, your environment and the safety of your clients and customers and staff for your environment for 45001, customers data for 27001. But you can then link these to the strategic goal quite easily. So those are the two differences. Business objectives tend to look at the bottom line and growing the business, etc., where the business ISO management objectives tend to look at the improvements that will bring money to the bottom line if done properly, if you're more efficient, more effective. You're exploiting your opportunities, you're mitigating the risk, you're fulfilling the client's expectations and need, and the referrals are flying in. Yes, you are going to improve the bottom line. But at the end of the day, your objective for a management system is looking really at the management system. We talked about the objectives, but then we need to think about planning the objectives. It's not just sitting there and, right, we're going to do that. Like we said, there is a process. So think about general considerations. You know, what advantages are there? And, you know, what disadvantages could be there in that objective? Weigh it up. If there's more disadvantages, you need to look for a new objective. But this is what the planning stage is all about. Change management process. Is your objective going to change something upstream or downstream of where it's going to go in? You need to do a risk assessment. If it's a big risk, you may need to then go through your change management process to implement that. So you've got things in place. So people downstream are aware that there's something's going to be different. Maybe a process downstream has to change. So you need to think about how this will affect the whole system, upstream and downstream, and what changes it may incur. Does it need the intervention of change management process? If it does, you've got to think about the change and change planning. It may mean that your objective will start a bit later, but it will also mean you've got a better chance of getting your objective approved by senior management, and also the buy-in from the people further downstream. And that's done through communication and awareness. Don't keep your objectives to yourself. I've seen in many companies that objectives are kept within a little department. That's their objective, and we're not going to tell anybody else. So, you know, that's no. Everybody in the business needs to be aware that there have been objectives set, even if they don't affect them, that there are objectives being set, that they are going to be implemented, that there may be some changes. So it's not a big fright when something happens. Somebody walks in and says, right, you don't do it like that anymore. You've got to do it like this. Get their inclusion, get their buy-in, get them to bring to you how they would make the changes of their system to fit in with that new thing that's going to happen. It makes the transition a lot smoother. Don't forget to check for your evaluation of impacts and risks. So what is the impact to the management system? What's the impact to the business if this goes wrong? And what are the risks if we do it and that happens? What can we do to change that? Think about who is going to be doing it. What do they need to do it? It's no good having a management system, management objective if it's not going to be resourced properly. A lot of management objectives fail because they haven't thought about what is required. They're smart, without a doubt, but they haven't been well resourced. They haven't got the right manpower. The people who are supposed to monitor them hasn't got the right equipment or hasn't got the right training to do that. they haven't got the equipment to do it, to actually implement the objective. So again, this needs to be thought through carefully. It has to be budgeted carefully. If the objective has quite a hefty budget, is the outcome of that objective going to be able to recover some of that budget, if not all of that budget, over a set period of time? You may need to have like a semi-business case to go and pass this one through senior management, but that's what they're going to be asking you. How much is this going to cost? You need to think about that. And then finally, set up and establish when it's going to be monitored, how it's going to be monitored, when it's going to be reviewed. Sounds a lot, but it actually flows quite well. It's actually a logical process. So let's look at some of the additional requirements and the other management systems. So 9001, which is obviously emphasis is on quality and clients. The emphasis is on planning changes related to the quality management system within processes, products and services. And also there's a bit more emphasis on the requirements focus on meeting customers' requirements and enhancing customer satisfaction, effectively improving products and service quality. So there's a sub clause within clause 6 that this is in. Clause 14,001, environmental management. Obviously, the focus is on planning changes related to the environmental management system, specifically looking at addressing environmental aspects and impacts. That's like potential risk and the actual risk impact assessment and the performance of actions to address those. Also, requirements for the prevention of pollution and compliance of applicable environmental regulations. It is quite heavily regulated. So within clause 6 of 14,001, there is a requirement that you have in place a way of monitoring and being compliant to those statutory and mandatory regulations. 45,001, which is the health and safety side, again centered around planning changes related to the health and safety of the management system of the people within the management system and within the company, with more of a focus on hazard identification and hazard mitigation, risk assessment and risk control within the health and safety remit. A little bit more pertinent to making sure you've got the right first aid firefighting equipment, first aid kits, eye washes, trained fire wardens, trained first aiders. Everybody is aware of the emergency exits and the muster points and all that. There's a lot more emphasis now on hazards and reactions to them. And then finally on 27,001, the focus is on planning and change related to the ISMS, including the identification and assessment of information security risks of both assets and data. The requirement emphasizes protection of sensitive information and safeguarding that data. The CIA, the confidentiality, the integrity and availability. And again, the legal and regulatory requirements bound around these areas. So GDPR, Cyber Essentials, the Data Protection Act. Again, there's a much more emphasis within clause 6 for this than in other standards. I said right at the beginning that clause 6 has tentacles that reaches up and down the management system. And I've already mentioned a couple. So within Annex SL formatted ISOs, here's how 6 sort of connects with other clauses. Clause 4 within context of organization. As I said, it looks closely and links closely with clause 4.1, which is internal and external issues that can affect the management system, and 4.2, the needs and requirements of interested parties. So those are the two links, and I went to a bit of length because it's an important part that links with 6.1. Clause 5, leadership. Again, leadership commitment and involvement are crucial in supporting the planning and management changes. Leadership sets the direction, and I've said, like ISO objectives can be aligned to the direction of the company. They're also responsible for the resources that you're going to be getting, going to permit the budget for it, and for changes, any changes, they are going to be resourcing the change initiatives. So they're quite closely linked with 6.2 and 6.3. Clause 7, which is support. It links with resources, including human resources, infrastructure, competence, and identifying, allocating, implementing planned changes. So change management is in there. It also emphasizes the importance of communication and awareness, which is in clause 7, 7.3, and create awareness changes to stakeholders outside of the company. So again, getting your message out, which is a really good objective as well. So there are links there with clause 6 and clause 7. Clause 8, clause 8 varies across all the standards. This is like your key area for all the standards. Clause 9001 has a lot in clause 8. 27001 has 3 clauses in clause 8. So there's a big difference between standards. But within clause 8, the links are change management again, because there's always changes in your operations, your processes, procedures, your documented information that is used as evidence with them. It helps ensure the change is implemented properly and ensures that the effectiveness is executed properly and in line with planned objectives. So there could be changes within clause 8 that are affected by your objectives, and because you've done your planning properly, they're already aware of it. They're looking at how they're going to need to change how they're doing things. They're rewriting their processes and procedures to fulfill that requirement, and then when they come back to you and say, right, we're happy to go away and get on that done. Clause 9, performance evaluation. Clause 6 establishes the framework for evaluating the performance of change within management. So you can see change is also, the key feature across all of this as we're going through. Clause 9 then focuses on monitoring and reviewing the effectiveness and suitability of implemented changes, including identifying non-conformities and opportunities for improvement. That comes from your internal audits of your management system, of your objectives. So at some time during your audit schedule, one of your auditors or your second party auditors will be auditing your objectives. So there's the linkage with 9 there, internal auditing going back to 6. And then finally, of course, clause 10, changes implemented under clause 6 are subject to continuous improvement, of course. Also, the outcome of your objectives as continuous improvement. Clause 10 guides your organisation into taking corrective and preventative action based on monitoring and review results. This is why it's important to monitor your objectives so you can take action to make sure you achieve that objective and therefore deliver an improvement, and driving further enhancements and adjustments to the management system. So overall, clause 6 acts as a vital thread that runs through the entire management system. Doesn't matter what ISO you've got. It links together various aspects of planning, support, operation, evaluation, and improvement. It goes a long way to ensure that change within the organisation is effectively planned, it's managed, it's monitored, and improved in alignment with the organisation's context, which is clause 4, the leadership's commitment, and the strategic objectives of the business. So just to summarise this quick management clause 4 management webinar. Clause 4, 6.1, actions to address risk and opportunity, link very, very closely with 4.1 and 4.2. It has to be documented. It is an important part of your risk management in all of your management systems. Some of the risks could be elevated to your business risk register. This is why it's crucial to make sure it's done properly. 6.2, organizations need to establish relevant objectives for their management system that are implemented, monitored, communicated, and updated as appropriate. Again, as I've been harping on about, make sure it's planned properly. If you follow that plan staging that I've suggested, there is a good chance that you will achieve your objective as long as you continuously monitor it with the right measurements taken, and then it's properly analysed to see that you're actually on track to achieve that goal. And if you're not, you have time to put in place and implement a new action plan to either reach the goal you initially go to or reach the new goal that you set for it. And then finally, clause 3, the organisation must control change that affects the management system by considering the potential consequences, upstream and downstream, the integrity of the management system, the availability of resources, and responsibility. Change is the thing that people don't like in any company. So change has to be managed carefully. So if you do your planning properly, you include them in your planning, you help them, get help from them with ideas about how you can implement it, change runs a lot smoothly. Well, I hope you enjoyed that. Just a few more bits about CertiKit. Apart from hopefully interesting webinars that we produce and blogs that we throw out, we do have a raft of other things we can offer. Hopefully you've heard of our toolkits. They're some of the leading toolkits out there. We've got toolkits for most of the ISO management systems, the popular ones that are out there, plus other ones for data protection, etc. They come with a support package of unlimited emails by myself and by Jerry and by Ken. We're all lead auditors for different management systems. You get automatic document updates. We continuously look at our document toolkits and see where they can be improved, either feedback from clients or feedback from changes from ISO standards. So we're always looking to update. And if you have a toolkit, you automatically get those updates. And also we can look at reviewing 3 of your documents. If you decide that you want to implement the ISO system and use our toolkit, we'll look at any 3 of your documents free of charge to say, yep, you're on the right track there, or no, you need to look at this and you've forgotten this, etc. And then finally, you get access to the video library. So not just this video, but all the webinars we've done before, and there's quite a few. We also do a logo replacement service. So if you have got one of our toolkits, you'll see that they've all got a placeholder for a logo, and every document has got your company name in it numerous times. So we can actually shortcut that. For a small charge, we can deliver to you a full set of documents that have got your logo throughout and your company name through all the documents where it's necessary. ISO consultancy. Toolkits are designed to be like standalone, but some of the clients, because they're small companies and they haven't got the resources to do that, they ask for help with that. So we provide a number of different type of ISO consultancy areas we can do. We can do ad hoc 1-hour bits and pieces, and if it's just a specific area you want, we can do full implementation where we do the full project with you and work with you. We do that on a daily basis, charge on a daily basis. And then we can do internal audits for small companies that don't, or even medium-sized companies that don't have internal auditors or the resources or the time to carry out internal audits. We can come in as a second party audit and either work into your audit schedule or with you develop an audit schedule, fulfill those audit requirements, which is a requirement of 9.2 of all the standards. And we can also do pre-cert audits. So if you're coming up to certification and you just want to check that you've got everything in place, we do a full audit as if we were an RCB. and come and look at your management system as RCB auditors would look at it prior to going to certification. This is a good catch-all for any little holes or wrinkles you've got. That's your auditing side. So that's what we can do. If any of those interest you, you can go to our website, and there's lots of information about how you can pick that up. So finally, if there's any questions being dropped into the Dropbox, into the chat box, I'll be happy to answer them, or myself or Jerry will be happy to answer them.
There's nothing at the moment, so probably just give a few seconds for people to type in the chat if you've got any particular questions.
Anything you want to add to it, Jerry?
Yeah, there's a couple of points. One of the things on objectives that I would say as well is that there's a principle here I always apply as well and give advice is less is often more as well.
Yeah.
I think from my experience, having fewer smart objectives, 2, 3, 4 smart objectives that are tracked is far better than having 20 objectives. Definitely. That you aren't going to achieve. So I think a less is more approach is definitely the way to go. I think, Ted, you did touch upon as well, aligning to strategic objectives. I would definitely encourage you to do that, because that shows then there is some sort of harmony, if you like, between the operational side, that the leadership are driving the business, and there's no disconnect, if you like, between what the business is trying to achieve strategically and what they want your management system to do in supporting delivery of those business objectives. So I think having some sort of alignment to them is vital to demonstrate that. The other thing as well is that I'd also be saying, don't be frightened to remove objectives either, that aren't actually working for you. So, we all start out at the, beginning of the year and say, hey, what can we do? Which is why I would say always have a clear alignment to strategic goals and objectives, so that at least there's some reasoning behind why the management system objectives are there. But don't be frightened to remove any that aren't working for you, or don't really appear to be adding the value or delivering value back into your management system that you think that they should be. So keep it as a living document almost. You should be reviewing the objectives periodically anyway through the management review. But the objectives list should be a living document as well, in terms of not only tracking where you're at in terms of progress against them, but also in terms of adding new ones in and expiring others that perhaps not adding the value that you thought they were going to have. So that's probably the only additional thing I would say on the objective side.
All good points. All good points.
What else? Yeah, you discussed quite well, I think, the tie up between the infamous 611 clause, we call it, which is the a lot of people miss this quite often, which is to ensure that any risks, particularly for 27001 audience, any risks that you've identified in the risk assessment, that they get brought into clause 8 operational to make sure that they're periodically reviewed. So that's probably it from me. That are the only extra things I can add.
So on behalf of Jerry and myself, thank you very much for attending the webinar. I hope you found it some use. Again, thank you very much. Enjoy your evening. I hope you have a good weekend. It's only around the corner.